What is the meaning to all of this? Like, what's the meaning to life? That's such a loaded question, but it's such a good one. It's such a good rabbit hole to dive down, and we're gonna do that a little bit in here. So my message, the core value point that I want to give for you guys is to understand, what is the meaning to all of this? How do I become my highest self? Because at the core of everything, we're always trying to expand, trying to grow, and trying to master ourselves. All right, this is the secret to life. This is the core concept to life. And you can see this. It's a testimony with everything. If you look outside and you see plants, they start from the seed and they sprout and they grow and they grow and they grow and they grow. But they're never just stopping for a year and then just saying, oh, I'm going to start growing again later. They're always reaching to grow to their full potential. And there's an important law here of the universe. It's everything, like as so within, so without. That core concept basically means you can see mirrors and mimicking throughout everything in the universe. For example, a black hole, the whole structure of a black hole looks very similar to water going down the drain, to this cone effect spiraling down. This is what I'm talking about. There's the similarities between large scale to small scale. The core structure, the core concept of it all still remains the same. It's the same framework. It's the same structure, just with different parts. So with that being said, we can understand that if plants are always growing to reach their full potential, that should be significant to us as well. We should never be just stagnating. We should never be just going through life trying to be average, normal, or fit in with everyone else. I know this is a common concept in our society today. Everybody wants to fit in, and we're hardwired to fit in that way, because if you think about it, in our brain, in the lizard brain, almost our ancient brain that's been there and evolved first, these core concepts kept us alive. We needed to fit in and be normal with the group, because the group is where we survived. And to survive, we had to have more humans, because if we tried to fight a lion on our own, we're gonna lose probably. Or there are people in Russia, fight bears. Dude, that's awesome. They're a different breed. But for the most of us here, like, we can't fight animals like that alone. We need our tribe. And we can't fight hard situations, trials, tribulations on our own. We need our tribe. We need our supporters. We need our group. So we're hardwired. It's in our DNA to want to fit in. And that's why, honestly, it's not just our society that's been like this, has that mindset to fit in, be normal, to be like the Jones, all that stuff. It's honestly, if you look back through history, it's always been that way. Like, it's because we were hardwired that way. So the real first core step to understand and master yourself is to understand yourself. So it's to be mindful. It's to go within, to learn yourself, to understand yourself, and you will start to understand the universe from that simple law. See, if we can understand ourselves, we have a better chance of understanding the universe. So that's why mastery of yourself is so very important, not just to attain things, not just to grow in the physical, grow in the mental, but it's more so of you can be your highest self, so you can give all you can give, so you can give your gift to this world to help other people, to help the world grow, to love and to give love. And that is the big scheme. That's the reason why we're all here, man. We're here to help each other. We're here to grow. We're here to elevate our consciousness. We're here to give back and to give without trying to receive, but just to give, because it's going to helpful and it's going to help everyone else. So with that, I just want you to know that's where we're moving to. That's always the big picture. I'm not sure if you guys are like this. My mind works like this. I need to know the big picture before I can break into the little parts, So just wanted to show you guys that's what it's all about, And I hope that resonates with you guys. If it does, leave it in the chat. Shoot me a message. I want to see that. Just let me know that you're following along. Let me know that you're with it, So the core concept of today, knowing the big picture, let's dive into one of the first steps you need to do to really master yourself is to become aware. It's to become mindful of yourself, mindful of your actions, mindful of your habits, mindful of the things you say, the energy you put out. Okay. And the energy that you get in, because those two are so key. Energy is everything. what you put out, what you get in, what you receive, what you consume. It all changes. It all changes everything. So I want to start today by talking about what the title is and kind of moving forward with that. So what I want to talk about today, guys, it's breaking the habit of being yourself. So this is kind of controversial. When I was writing this, I was like, man, is that really going to be something good? Is that going to be something that sticks? But I feel like it is, just because you got to understand here with mastery of yourself, you have to unlearn yourself, because you got to understand with awareness, you start to understand what you do, the actions you take and the things you say, the energy you give. And you start to realize that a lot of these things that you're saying, that you're doing, the actions, the things you do and put into your life, consume, are not from you. They're from learned behavior from your parents, from your siblings, from your friend group, from your school. Growing up, we learn and we are soaking in everything. A lot of what we do is not from us, not from our genuine self. It's learned behaviors from everyone else. You know, there was I was going out to eat yesterday with my girlfriend and her family, and this really just stuck out to me, and it's a testimony of this. You know, she learned, Savannah, my girlfriend, she learned at it from a young age. Every time she went over to her grandma's house, her grandma would make her breakfast, and she would tell me the story. Her grandma would make her breakfast, and her and her siblings, and they would just be eating a feast. So much food. It's the Italian family, you know, there's so much food, always. Such good food too, let me tell you. But you can easily get carried away and stuff your face and be so full. And that's what usually happened. That's what she was telling me. But her grandma would always look at her and her siblings and be like, no, 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 you got to finish that. So she would literally spoon feed this food into their mouths to make sure they clean their plates. And now Savannah is like hardwired and conditioned to always eat that way. And she even yells at me sometimes. She even like brings up, she's like, you got to finish that, man. Because it's just so funny to see how that plays out over time. A conditioned response from your grandmother telling you always consistently, clean your plate, finish your food. And then that eventually becomes part of your personality. So you build the habit. You start with the habit, the conditioned response of somebody telling you to do something. So you do it because you want them to like you, you know, their family or friends or whoever it may be. You want to continue with a good relationship. So sometimes we concede, we do things and we try to please everybody and try to grow that way and try to build relationships that way, which is not wrong. Just saying it's what we do sometimes. So that conditioned response then over time starts to become a habit. And it starts to become an unconscious habit, a subconscious habit. And this then turns into her personality or turns into your personality, right? Because you're doing it so constantly. You're conditioning yourself to always think in this pattern. Therefore, that starts to open the door to other things from that response. You know, it leads to different things. It manifests in different ways in your life. So you can kind of see there that that conditioned response plays out into a grand, larger scheme. I'm sure there's many things in your life, and I know in my life, that have been conditioned responses. And it wasn't until the past 5 years that I really started to take a step back and go through this mastery technique, understanding myself, stripping away all the things that were learned and conditioned to me, and really diving deep to figure out, okay, who am I? Who is Dylan? And what does he think? What does he feel? And what does he want to do? You know, and it's from there, that awareness, that opened the door to everything, to a whole boatload more of questions, but then answers, which led to more questions and so on and so forth. But with that being said, we got to understand and bring awareness to yourself. And the first way to do that, guys, is to understand your habits. All right. So as I stated in that story, you know, she was conditioned to eat all her food. And then that eventually, because she continuously did that, became a habit. Now, the act of continuously doing something builds a habit. Because in the anatomy of a habit here, what a habit actually is, if we dissect this, it is your brain, neurons, firing and wiring together. They're literally reaching out and breaking apart from other neurons and coming together and fusing and forming to create pathways, neural pathways. And that is how your brain conserves energy. It builds these pathways so that way it's an uncontrolled or it's a unconscious response. It just happens. Ever heard of muscle memory? That's muscle memory. You're building neural pathways where you don't have to think about it in your conscious mind. It's all subconscious. It's your body's just action. It's just what it does. That's why they always tell you to practice, 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 because you need to build these neural pathways, and it takes time to do that. So you do these conditioned responses, you do these responses time and time and time again. You're eventually building pathways, and when neurons wire together, they fire together, and they just solidify and fuse and strengthen. And over time, that bond becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. It becomes a lot harder to break those bonds. Say you have a bad habit, like eating all the food on your plate, because, you know, you could do that. You could go up through middle school, high school, always having conditioned response to eat all the food on your plate, but then eventually you're eating a lot more than you need to. Maybe you're not exercising, maybe you're just studying, and then all of a sudden you're in college and you gain the freshman 15 like that, and it turns into the freshman 30, and then the freshman 50, and then before you know it, you're 40 with 50 extra pounds, and you're like, dude, where did I go? I was an athlete in high school, you know, all that stuff. But that's an example here, but I want you to see the power of habits and the power of uncontrolled habits, uncontrolled responses. It can do great things for you, or it could do very bad for you. And with you guys specifically here, talking about your weight training and talking about your training, you guys really need to make sure you're building solid, successful habits and really understand the habits that you currently have. Habits with eating. Do you have cravings? Do those cravings control you? Why do you have those cravings? And what do you go to soothe those cravings? Where do you go to soothe those cravings, right? How do you handle yourself in the gym? Do you walk into the gym kind of thinking about work? You know, this conditioned response to always think about work. You're always thinking about your wife, your kids, you know, your relationships, your family, whatever stressors. You're in the gym, but you're not mentally in the gym, you know? And over time, that can build into a habit where you're just unconsciously doing that. You don't even realize you're thinking about something else, but you're not even presently here. And that is where it can become damaging. So we need to stay mindful. We need to stay focused on the present, focused on where we are, and understand our habits. So with understanding the anatomy of a habit, there are 3 parts to a habit. All right. And this is very important, guys. If you got a pen, pencil, write this down, because this information I got from Atomic Habits, and it changed my life when I started understanding this stuff. So there's 3 sections to a habit. Okay, we got to understand this so we can really break it down, so we can dissect it, we can backtrack it, and we can fill in the blocks, just like you take Legos and build something out of nothing. All right, so the first is your trigger. Okay, the second is the habit or the action, and the third is the outcome or the response. All right, so looking at those 3, we have the trigger, which is usually a feeling or somebody saying something, a physical action. Okay, for example, let's say you're shirtless and you go outside, and it's Illinois. You know, if I said this about 2 months ago, I was in Tennessee, it would have been completely different, because it's like 70, it's like 80 there right now. You're around there, you know, it's sunny, it's beautiful. I can go outside with a shirt on and not worry about it. But right here in Illinois, well, Indiana, where I am close to the Great Lakes, we know Chicago boys, it's cold. It's cold and it's windy. So when we go outside, that cold and that wind hit us. So initially, that wind hitting us and that cold air hitting us, that's the trigger. Okay, that's the feeling, that's the action. All right, and then the habit would be our body shivering. All right, that's the minute habit. But there's another habit that also comes from that. We get cold, so then we can either, 1, endure the suffering, or we can go put on a jacket. All right, so based on the trigger, our habit, like I said, I laid out 2 pathways, and we decide which one we want to do. Do we want to prolong our suffering, or do we want to take an immediate action to fix that suffering and to give us a greater outcome, right? The bad versus the good, the evil versus the good, right? In terms of duality of everything, there's 2 sides to every habit. We just got to make sure we're moving in the right direction that's positive for our success, because I don't want you to see the good and the evil and think, oh, it's evil, I should stay away from that, because evil is just like black and white. Like, you know, it's the duality, it's the yin and the yang, you know, it's the duality. We need both to make up the full circle. All right, so it's not good nor bad, it just is. Just understand, we need to make habits that are going to lead us towards success, towards our goals, to successfully completing our goals. This is why we're going in, doing this deep work to analyze ourselves, to understand what our current habits are. So we have the triggers, we have the habit itself, which is the action, and then we have the response, the outcome, what gives us the pleasure, right? Now, that benefit could be an immediate pleasure with a prolonged suffering, or an immediate suffering, a slight suffering with a prolonged reward. See, this is where we got to really break down, is this habit, this trigger, this habit, this outcome leading me towards something that's going to give me a prolonged success? Or is it giving me a short-term comfort, but prolonged suffering? This, when you break down, guys, when you do this homework, after this, I want you to really start to analyze your week, your day through the week, and start to analyze the habits and the things, the actions and the thoughts you have. Ask yourself this: am I going for the fast reward and the prolonged suffering, or am I going for the short suffering and the prolonged reward? Is the outcome going to be a reward or more suffering? Ask yourself that. And if it's suffering, that's obviously not going to be a positive way to live your life. You can only do that for so long before something breaks. We want to shift that into something more positive, things that are going to start to build momentum, like a snowball, adding more and more positive things to it. And before you know it, you're a completely different person just by changing one little habit, just by tweaking little habits. So this is what it's all about, guys. We got to get this mastery. We got to know ourselves, got to understand where we're moving towards. All right. So I really want to break this down with you guys to help you understand, okay, how can I figure out what my habits are? Because when I read Atomic Habits, it laid this groundwork out for me, but I still had this question. I was like, okay, this is nice, but like, how do I apply this? Because how do I figure out what my habits are, especially the ones that are so subconscious that I can't even consciously acknowledge that I'm doing? Like, I don't remember putting the cap back on the toothpaste after I'm done, but I know I did it because it's always done. I don't remember that. So what we need to do is break through this unconscious behavior, this unconscious moving through life. We need to become conscious, and we need to become mindful. We need to become in this moment. And this is how you master yourself. This is step one, awareness. Okay. So when you're thinking about, okay, how do I identify my habits? It's best to start from the end and backtrack. Look at the outcome. Look at the things that you feel throughout the day. Start to analyze that, because that's a pretty significant way to come into the present moment and really feel that emotion. Start to feel your emotions more. So let's say you have a habit and you're trying to figure it out, and you realize, like, man, I just feel like crap. I just feel like crap right now. Like, I feel pissed off at myself. I feel frustrated. I feel like I failed. I feel like I did something that did not ultimately get me to my end goal. I know it's not going to do that. So I just can't figure out why I did it. I don't even realize what I just did. I just know I feel this way. So let's take that feeling, that outcome, and let's backtrack. Let's think then a few seconds back and look at the action that you just did before that led you to that feeling. Whatever that action may be, break it down. All right. Analyze it, understand it. Don't think of it and judge yourself, but think of it objectively. All right. Not as a subjective observer, which is yourself, which is you thinking in terms of right or wrong, but be objective, which is the bigger picture, the grand scheme of things. There's no right, there's no wrong. It just is. Stay an objective observer through all this, and you'll be able to really identify these habits a lot better. So when you can find and pinpoint that action, then you need to think about the trigger that happened right before that. Okay, think about what feeling, what physical response, maybe you heard something, saw something, felt something, or had just an unconscious feeling inside you. You felt maybe energy surge in one area of your body. Whatever that trigger may be, hone in on it, focus on it, and then ask yourself, okay, why did I have the response from this trigger, and why did I respond in the way I did? All right, just ask yourself these questions, and you will get them. You will get the answers, and they're just going to help you open the doors to figuring yourself out even more, to mastering yourself. So another big aspect of all this, once you identify your triggers, you need to understand that it's not really about changing the habit itself. What we need to do is change or stack habits. All right. Change the bad to the good and stack habits. Because, like I said earlier, when you're building habits neurologically inside your brain, your neurons are forming, fusing together, and they're firing and wiring together. So these fuses are very difficult to break. They can break. You can unlearn things and relearn things. It is absolutely possible. Neuroscience shows this with study after study in the lab. It is so cool to look at those studies and understand the brain, how it works. And you can see that people are changing their lives based on thoughts alone. And that's where thoughts become things, really get started, and is groundwork for all of this. So understand that it's not the easiest path to break a habit, but it is very easy and simple to stack a new one on top of that. So let's say first thing in the morning, you wake up, right? Actually, no, let's use the food example. So my girlfriend with her grandma always conditioning her to the food, to always eating her food on her plate. So she feels the ending response, the outcome is feeling bloated, feeling lethargic, feeling like, dude, I just made a bad decision. Why do I always do this when I eat? Then she thinks about, okay, well, that's my outcome. What's the response? What's the habit? I'm eating all of the food on my plate. Now, why? What triggers me here? Oh, it's eating my food, starting to eat my food, but then hearing that voice, my grandma, she's literally on my shoulder, in my ear, yelling at me, you better eat that food, so then you just shovel it in. So that, the outcome, the habit, and then the trigger are the full spectrum of this habit that she has, this unconscious behavior that she's continuously doing that's leading, could be, I'm not saying it is, I'm just using this as an example. She's lovely, she's skinny, she's not overweight, she's doing great with herself, just want to let you know. But it could lead to excess weight gain. It could lead to, poor health, obesity, heart disease, all these, diabetes, all these other issues that our society, let's face it, is seeing. Guys, did you know obesity went from like 41% in 2019, 2018 to almost 50% now? 50% of the United States adults are considered obese. That 50%. Out of every two people, one person is fat and obese and overweight and unhealthy. That is significant. That is so significant, because these things, it's not like, I'm not trying to fat shame. I'm not doing that. I don't believe in that at all. I believe in health. I believe in what's going to create an optimal body, create optimal energy to allow you to master yourself, to allow you to get to that next level, to allow you to be your highest self, your best self. And when you have a lot of excess weight on you, it bogs you down. It keeps you in a lower state of thinking, feeling, and all that. All right. So it's, in health terms, obesity leads to such destructive things and destructive behavior. And that's why, honestly, with Muscle University, that's why we're here, guys. It's to spread this knowledge about muscle building and to help wake people up to start taking responsibility for their lives and taking action and building a healthier self, so they can master themselves, so they can honestly grow and achieve higher levels of themselves. So with all of that being said, guys, understanding kind of what the habit is, the anatomy of a habit, understanding that you need to become aware by understanding your subconscious actions. All right. I want you to take this knowledge. I want you to take this and I want you to apply it into your life. I want you from this point until we meet again, I want you to start really writing down and being super aware of your habits, big to little. All right. Everything. And ask yourself, is this going to lead me towards a positive outcome, or is this going to lead me towards something destructive? And if it's destructive, I want you to figure out, okay, what can I do to stack another positive habit on top of that to get a different response, to get a different outcome? This is how we need to biohack your brain to working for success. All right. This is going to be mastery step number 1. All right. So that's your task for this week, guys. I believe in you. I know you got this. All right. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to open it up now. Let's go ahead, unmute yourselves, and we'll go ahead. If you guys got some questions, unmute yourselves. Let's dive into that right now. All right. What you got, Caleb? What's up, my man?
Hey, just give me 1 second, okay?
Yeah, yeah, sure thing, sure thing.
Hey, sorry, the my allergies are terrible right now. It's that time of the year. But let's make sure I'm up here. Yeah. So I really relate with what you're saying about the triggers, and I think that's been one of the most interesting parts of dieting over the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, really, is recognizing those triggers and then acting accordingly. So at first, I didn't realize they were going on, and they were definitely, as you were talking about, kind of unconscious parts of my daily habits. And one of the one of the things I'm going to look back as going through this prep is learning that. And even if I'm not in a deficit in the future or just kind of intuitively eating, I think I've learned a lot just from the diet plan that you've had me on over the last couple months. And it's so true that those habits play such an important role when you're in your life and everything that you do. And there are so many different things that I didn't realize were triggers for me, and I'm slowly starting to see them. And a lot of that really stemmed from changing up my diet, and I think the dopamine response with that. Hey, we can't hear you, man.
Sorry about that. That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. Like that shows when you change one thing, it leads to greater things. It manifests into other areas of your life. Changing one small part or even bringing awareness to one thing is going to lead to the next, like a domino tipping over and then eventually just overturning thousands of dominoes all from one flick of one domino. This is the power of really bringing mindfulness into yourself, to understanding your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, how you respond to things, how you feel about things deeply on a deeper level. So that's beautiful, man. I love that. I love that. I'm glad to see you had such great responses from this and great progress from this. Honestly, you've crushed it so far, dude. I can't wait to see how much farther you're going to take this. This is great, dude. This is great. It's building champions right here. That's what we do. That's what we do. Well, good stuff, dude. Did you have any other things that stuck out to you from this message?
Just a follow up to what I had said previously, another trigger that I've realized a lot more recently is, and again, this definitely stems from taking such a fine tool and going through my diet and making sure that everything's correct, is my sleep. And a huge part of my sleep, I have these triggers where I either didn't feel like I got all my work done, or I have way too much going on in my head. And in the past, those were triggers for me to watch TV shows before bed or do things that kept me from sleep. And now I've recognized those triggers. So I meditate, do some breath work, and I'll be able to go to sleep. I'll recover quicker, and it aids everything else, right? It makes my nutrition easier, the
Yeah,
workouts better as I'm more recovered. So just want to give an example. I know I'd mentioned
beautiful.
how I noticed other triggers. Sleep is a huge one for me.
Yeah. That's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah, once you dial that in, once you bring awareness to that, like you said, that led to starting to eat better, starting to focus more on your food, focus on how you train, leading to larger things. And that is exactly what we're talking about in this. That's a great example. Thanks for sharing that, Caleb. That's good stuff, man. So with that, guys, we're almost out of time here for today. I hope you gained a lot of knowledge from this. I hope you gained some insight and maybe sparked a thought process in your mind to help you maybe see things from a different angle. With that being said, I know I should have said this from the start, but the biggest thing with coming into this, with learning this, is to open your mind, is to start this with an open mind, to not stick to your unconscious thought patterns, because like we said, we need to bring awareness to it. So we need to step out, become objective observer, and open your mind to new thoughts, to new thought processes, to new ideas, to new things. Then you can see, okay, do I relate to this? Do I resonate to this? Or does this not fit in with what I need to learn at this time? You know, so with that being said, we can start to really understand some deeper levels to ourselves when we really get into an objective state, an objective view of everything, of ourselves. So guys, thank you again for joining me today. I appreciate it, guys. I'm stoked that you guys took time out of your day to view this message. It means a lot to me. And I hope it touched your guys' hearts and it touched your ears and helped you to maybe think in a different way. And let's use this information. Like I said, I want you to really start to analyze your habits, analyze your triggers, figure out from the response, the outcome, backtrack it to the action, then to the trigger to figure out why you do the things you do, and then stack positive habits onto that. From there, we can get into the next step of mastery, which is understanding how your energy causes you to feel. How you use your energy affects how you feel, how you see yourself, and how you see and view yourself into the world. All right. Well, we will join and we will start up with that next time, guys. But until then, I hope you have a great week. Thanks for joining again, guys. If you got any other questions, let me know in the chat or shoot me a text and we'll talk about them. All right. See you guys later.
Thanks, Dylan.